Hello, and welcome to the Week 13 edition of the Survivor Podcast. Lines.com, Matt Brown, Steven Andrus, and if you are still with us, you are a god amongst mere mortals because this has been absolute chaos over the last 2 weeks here, and I can assure you, whatever pool you were in is down to the last handful of people because that is just the way that this season has played out. Steven, just a reminder for everybody, everything we do absolutely free. So obviously we have our Survivor article over on the lines.com. If you're watching us over on YouTube, down below, hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, then let us know in the comments, if you're still alive, what are you thinking this week? What are you doing this week? Because Steven, listen, I'm not going to say, well, sure, there's always luck involved in all of this or whatever, but I really do look out to the people that got eliminated this past week by playing the Lions or playing even, I mean, it was a tough click, but even the Patriots, whatever. It's very hard to fault the logic behind it. It was a very tough week to begin with and whatnot. And, listen, it's not like 2 weeks ago where we were like, hey, you should take Dallas. Dallas is a free square. If you're taking anybody else, then it's just, you're getting too cute. There wasn't that option this week. And so it's very hard for me to look at anybody that got eliminated this past week and say, yeah, you probably should have done this, or maybe if you'd have gone this way or whatever, because if you're playing to win, you likely were picking the team that you thought gave you the best chance to be there at week 18, and it just didn't go your way.
This is why it's the toughest tournament entry pool there is in NFL betting every year. I mean, there's a reason why there's only one at the end usually, or a couple out of tens of thousands of people sometimes in these pools. So that if that's the starting point, then at some point there's going to be carnage. A couple times along the way there's going to be carnage. We went a long way with chalk getting through, and last week I think it was a combination of a couple things, Matt. I think most people had already used the Cowboys and the Dolphins to that point. If they didn't, they were sitting on a really nice option for last week, but most of us I think already used them. So, for me personally, I wound up on the Chiefs and then realized my pool required 2 picks during Thanksgiving week. So fired off the Lions, and I was one of the Lions victims a week ago. But, in my pool, 67% of people were eliminated. I know you monitor Circa as well with them having to pick Thanksgiving and also the Sunday, and complete carnage there as well. So, hey, if you're still in this and you're watching this video, just know you're talking to a couple guys who've already been eliminated in their pools, but have given you good process along the way if you just make the right decision. And we want to hear from you this week for sure, because if you're still in it, we want to hear your opinion in the comments because you've made it this far.
So, yes, 9,267 entries into the largest legal survivor pool in the country. There are 80 people left. Wow. 80 out of 9,267. So, yes, complete and utter carnage over the last 2 weeks. And so that leads us here to this week, Steven, where, it's going to be really tricky. If we look at the big favorites, again, I can't imagine you have Dallas left, but Dallas is a 9-point favorite. I can't imagine you have the Dolphins. If you do, 9.5-point favorites there in that one. The Steelers find themselves as 5.5-point favorites. And the reason I kind of highlight them, because that's probably going to be a team people are looking at this week. The Lions are all the way up to 4.5 over the Saints. Chargers, I know, going to be a tough click. Chargers are 6-point favorites over the Patriots. Bucks are 5.5-point favorites over the Panthers. Some news coming through that it does look like Baker Mayfield is going to be able to go for the Bucks in that one. So if you have to make that click, at least a little bit more security there with that one. The Chiefs are 6-point favorites over the Packers. Jags 8.5 over the Bengals, and then that's kind of where we sit with this. And Steven, look, it's tough, right? Because a lot of these big favorites you likely have played to get where you are right now, right? I mean, you likely have played them somewhere along the way in order to still be around here in week 13. So we do have to start looking at these ancillary choices. And, you start to look at Pittsburgh Steelers against the Arizona Cardinals that even with getting Kyler Murray back has not looked like a very good team. The Bucks up against the Panthers that we know the Panthers just are complete and utter garbage. Like there's absolutely nothing to do. It's going to be a tough click, but I imagine both of those teams are going to have to be played this week given what people have already burnt.
Yeah, I think we kind of start with the 2 teams that have the highest win probability and just say if you somehow still have the Dolphins or the Cowboys, then you should probably just use one of them. But if you go to our article
or the Jags,
Yeah, or the Jags. More people have them available. The article at thelines.com is showing from our partners at Pool Genius, only 2% and 1% projected to pick the Dolphins and the Cowboys, which means most everybody's picked them. So we don't really need to break that down. If you have one of those two, pick them. The Jags are probably going to be one of, if not the most popular picks this week, Matt. So if you're just looking to survive, it makes a ton of sense. Browning didn't show much as the backup quarterback for the Bengals his first time out. The Jags don't have a ton of future value here for the next few weeks, and they are the third most likely team, at least if you convert money line to win probability, behind the Dolphins and the Cowboys. So really the only reason you wouldn't pick the Jags this week is game theory purposes based on their popularity. But if the Steelers are going to be just as popular, then it's an easy pick for me, the Jags over the Steelers, because this is still only a one-game sample of the new offensive coordinator in Pittsburgh, and who knows if that's actually going to be, predictive the rest of the way here with Matt Canada out.
Yeah, so everyone knows. I mean, listen, I come from poker, I come from DFS, it's like game theory, big part of all that. Like game theory's out the window at this point. Like you're trying. You are now at the finish line of your pool, and so you don't get cute here from here on out, because most likely people in your pool have burnt really, really good teams. And so like if you have the Jags, most likely a whole bunch of people in your pool don't have the Dolphins, Cowboys, or Jags. And so they are going to have to play an inferior team this week. And we have seen this repeatedly over the last few weeks. These middling teams are ripe to get knocked off. And so it's just like you just said with the Steelers. Like Steelers likely, to me, I'm guessing, specifically in the circuit contest, probably going to be the most popular pick or the second most popular pick, because people just haven't used them and they find themselves as at least a decent favorite. But if we're sitting here talking next week and Kyler Murray and the Cardinals found a way to pick off the Steelers, like we're not going to be surprised. Like that's not going to like shock us in the least bit. Like that we'd be like, oh yeah, that seems about right. And so at this point, if you have played yourself to where you do have one of these really good teams left, most likely the people in your pool don't. So it's a point now where you just survive and advance, because you're going to, like I said, you're at the finish line at this point. Literally 9,267 entries. There are 80 people left in the biggest one in the country. So I know in yours as well, it's going to look something similar.
Yeah, and just kind of checking out the old national pool over at ESPN to see like how many are actually alive here. Through week 12, only about 15,000 survived. Half of the remaining pool was knocked out. So about 15,000 nationally still alive out of more than 500,000 original entries. So you are in the end game now. And just with the Jacksonville Jaguars, if you don't use them this week, then the next time you're going to get a win probability this high isn't until week 17 when they face the Carolina Panthers. So which
listen, if you're lucky enough to have the Dolphins and the Jags, or the Cowboys and the Jags, you save the Jags, because listen, you're going to get a layup in week 17, because the Jags are still going to be playing for very significant things in week 17. And by that point, Carolina, if Carolina isn't already completely checked out on the season, like they're going to be completely checked out on the season. And so, you certainly want to do that, but it's a deal too, Steven. So now you have to ask, what if someone has the Chiefs left? I'm a little weary of Chiefs on the road, especially considering we have 15 against New England, 16 against Vegas, and then 17 against Cincinnati.
Oh, yeah.
I like the Chiefs, and anyone that listens to the Megapod each week knows, like, I've been a little bit down on the Chiefs comparatively to most people, because I have seen that offense struggle. We saw the offense struggle again this past week against the Raiders until they started clicking in the second half. I don't want to play them on the road against Green Bay, who maybe has found a little bit of something on offense, maybe has found something, like Jordan Love at least is feeling a little bit more confident. I'd rather put the Chiefs in my pocket, and I know it's one of the top 3 teams in the NFL. I'm not taking that risk. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, Jordan Love past 4 games, if you look at the advanced statistics, has actually performed better than Patrick Mahomes. Now, there's been some tougher opponents, obviously, for Mahomes, and I don't think anybody's going to argue that Love is on par with Mahomes at this point. So, The question is going to be this week, is it completely a product of the schedule that Jordan Love has faced over the past month, or is this real true progression? Is that a chance you want to take in Survivor when you've come this far along, especially to your point when the future value is absolutely still there with the Chiefs, and we have a little bit more of a couple of off the radar picks that have higher win probabilities than the Chiefs this week, or at least just about as high as the Chiefs. If you convert,
about the same,
if you convert the money line to win probability, Jags are higher, and then you have 5 or 6 other teams that are about the same on the money line as the Chiefs are this week.
Yeah, so I guess herein lies the question. Let's just assume, hey, you survived this far, so we're not taking anything away from you. But you have blasted through all the good teams. You don't have the Dolphins, you don't have the Cowboys, you don't have the Jags, you don't have the Chiefs. So now it comes down to a choice between the Chargers and the Steelers. Steven, it is the Chargers on the road, it is the Steelers at home. But it is the Chargers against a team that is just dead on arrival. The Patriots have absolutely nothing left. But it's the Steelers at home, but they're against a team that at least has Kyler Murray, that at least has James Conner, that at least has Hollywood Brown. I mean, like, there's at least a little bit of talent on that team. Where are you leaning if let's say you had blasted through all the good teams and you are having to pick one of these secondary options, Chargers or Steelers?
Can I say Detroit? I mean,
you could, but I think people probably have. If you didn't get bumped by Detroit on Thanksgiving, you probably had played them earlier. Is my guess. Like, my guess is that you probably played them
question.
Yeah,
I'll answer your question. It's believe it or not, I think it's the Steelers, because as negative as the quarterback situation is for the Patriots, they're going to muck this game up. They're going to try and make it a rock fight. It's in Foxborough. And what does Bill Belichick do best? He takes away your number one option on offense. And if you take away Keenan Allen right now from the Chargers, what do they have left for Justin Herbert to move the ball with? Because we saw over and over again Austin Eckler getting pummeled on every check down and screen pass. It seems clear that NFL teams have figured that out and have taken Eckler and his ability to get big chunk plays or positive yardage on the reg in the passing game out of the mix, and he hasn't really rushed the ball efficiently as well. So there's not much left if you take away Keenan Allen at this point. So I don't see the Chargers. Like, I'm never laying 6 on the road with the Chargers this week, if you think this is going to be a comfortable win with Los Angeles. I don't think it is. So I'm more willing to take the chance on, given if the option is one of these two, I'm more willing to take the chance that this is something with the OC change in Pittsburgh. I liked what I saw with scheming guys like Pat Freiermuth wide open in the middle of the field for chunk plays in the passing game. And I hear your points about Kyler Murray, but also the Cardinals defense is horrendously bad. Like, they got sliced and diced by the LA Rams last week in a game where Kupp and Nakua didn't even do anything.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, it's the Steelers, given that if I have to choose between those two.
So me too, and it's like for a couple of different reasons. Look, it is Steelers are at home. There's always that. 2, it's a dome team flying across the country, going outdoors in like high 40s, low 50s, and there's like a 40-50% chance of rain right now, right? So all of that favors. And an
early game too. Pacific time zone team going east for an East Coast early game.
All that favors Pittsburgh. They've actually figured something out with the run game over the last few weeks as well, which is a little odd. So they shouldn't have any resistance against the Cardinals. As much as I don't like Kenny Pickett, I don't think Kenny Pickett's going to really be needed all that much in this game. It'd be Pittsburgh with me. I'll tell you another reason why with the Chargers. Not only is it on the road, not only is it in cold conditions and all that, but Steven, like, Staley is now like coaching for his job, and guys get desperate, right? I can see him doing something that could end up costing them this game, because he's like, oh my God, if I lose this game to the Patriots, like, they're going to fire me like tonight, you know? And,
is he going to be as aggressive on high leverage plays?
Right.
Or
That's what I'm saying. Like, I think he makes bad decisions.
Yeah.
I think he makes bad decisions. Under pressure, I think he makes decisions that probably are not optimal, because He listen, he knows it's the hottest seat in all the NFL. He understands. Like, he is coaching for his job. And I think that gets in people's heads, and so for everything that you mentioned, everything that I mentioned, whatever, for me, if I didn't have one of the good teams, I would play the Steelers, and it just is what it is for me. And I would play the Steelers over the Rams, over the Bucks, over whatever, because listen, we have, like you said, yeah, the Rams looked all right last week, but it's a little troubling that they didn't have any production at all from their main two receivers, and now they're going to play Cleveland, which at least has a good defense. Like, I don't really know about that. Tampa, yeah, Baker's going to go, but Baker's all banged up. I don't care if it is Carolina. Like, if you have no quarterback and they have to go to Kyle Trask, then you've evened the playing field. It's like Kyle Trask versus Bryce Young. I mean, like, now you've evened the playing field, right? If Baker
do you also buy the fired coach bump narrative? I'm not sure I buy it as much as McDaniels, but I mean, it can't hurt, right?
Right. Yeah. And so, yeah, for me, it's Pittsburgh, and I think it's Pittsburgh pretty convincingly. If for whatever reason I can't imagine a scenario in which you didn't have Pittsburgh, then yeah, pick on the worst team in the NFL. I mean, it would be Tampa for me after that, because I will always go and pick on the worst team in the NFL. And here's the deal. I don't think Joe Flacco has anything left in the tank, Steven, but he gives the Browns a better chance. Yeah, I mean, like, he gives the Browns a better chance to win than P.J. Walker does, And so you and I are very heavy into the advanced statistics and all those things. Like, P.J. Walker has graded out as the worst quarterback in the NFL in every single statistic there is across the board. Like, he is absolutely the nut low. So you can't go worse than Flacco. It can't be worse. It's impossible for it to be lower with Flacco. And so what if he actually is able to push the ball down the field a little bit to Amari Cooper and to Elijah Moore? Like, I'm not going there. So if for whatever reason I didn't have the Steelers, I would just pick on the worst team in the NFL and the Panthers, and just hope that a banged up Baker Mayfield can get it done against a team that, if they couldn't figure out a way to win last week against the Titans, who looked atrocious, then I don't know if they're going to win another game this year.
Yeah, I'll just take a moment, quick plug, as I've been doing the past couple of weeks here. If you've gotten this far, you have to map out your route for the rest of the season to give yourself the best chance. Down in the description, if you're listening on YouTube, if you're listening in podcast form, go to the YouTube version of this. In the description, get the 3-day trial from Pool Genius. Check out the optimal path tool, the EV calculator, so you can figure out which combination of teams to use the rest of the way to give yourself the best chance of actually getting to the finish line here. But I'm in agreement with you. It looks like Tampa Bay potentially has the chance of being the most popular team this week. I'm going to stay away from it. Just, I was very disappointed from what I saw against the Colts last week, and the Panthers might be getting some key defensive pieces back that are actually very good players. We'll see if they get them back. CJ Henderson, JC Horn. Not sure if they will or not, but just keep that in mind if you're thinking about taking the Bucks. I agree with you with the Rams. I would prefer the Steelers still at that point. And I'll just mention the Lions again, because if you still have the Lions, it means you didn't play them last week. It didn't go bust. There's not many good places to use them the rest of the year, but this week has turned into a pretty decent option. Extra rest, dome environment, even though it's on the road, which we love with Jared Goff games. And the Saints are out of receivers. Michael Thomas on IR, Rashid Shaheed is hurt, not going to play. Chris Olave has an uphill battle to clear the concussion protocol, I believe. So I don't know who this is going to turn into, like Taysom Hill getting 12 carries in this game. So I don't know what this offense is going to be and how they're going to keep up with the Detroit Lions offense. So you're always in danger of Goff fumbling the ball with his tiny hands like we saw on Thanksgiving, but this has turned into a pretty good setup for the Lions this week as well, Matt.
Yeah, if you held on to your studs like we were screaming and preaching and all of that, like, you could go, there's a path in which you could go Pittsburgh this week, Baltimore against the Rams next week, San Francisco against Arizona in 15, Kansas City against Las Vegas in 16, and then Philadelphia against Arizona in 17. And that gets you to week 18, in which, if you're still around, you then can just play whatever you want to, and you bet the other side of it, and you're going to make a shitload of money any way you look at it. So, like, if you make it to week 18, it doesn't really matter. So, I mean, we were screaming about the future value of the Niners, the Chiefs, and the Eagles because of these 3 weeks in which you get Cardinals, Raiders, and Cardinals again to go and pick on. with the Niners, Chiefs, and Eagles. And so just if you're, again, just trying to pad things out, if you did it kind of how we were scheming, you could go Steelers this week, Baltimore next week, and then San Francisco, Kansas City, Philadelphia in 15, 16, 17. All three teams will have stuff to play for. They will all still be playing hard. You don't have to worry about any of that nonsense. And then once you get to week 18, like I said, then you're going to win something no matter what, because you're either going to win the whole thing or you have a giant hedge on the other side and you're going to make a bunch of money anyway. So that is a path to week 18 right there.
You read my mind. If I have those three studs left, Niners, Chiefs, and Eagles, I'm not using them any of the next 2 weeks because they're just like, nothing's an automatic win, but they're going to be so high in win probability. Whoever you pick, there's going to be an option in week 15, 16, and 17. So you mentioned the Ravens. If people have already used them, even next week. And the reason we're saying this, at this point in the season, we're not sure if we're going to do any more Survivor videos after this. It depends on how many views we're getting. So we're in the end game now. If you're still watching, we really appreciate it. You've been awesome supporting this video all season long, and we thank you for that. If there's not a lot of interest in it after this week's video, we may not do another one. So to just put a bullet and a period on Matt's point, if you get past this week with all the options we talked about, he mentioned the Ravens in week 14. I also see some other options there, maybe even if you don't use the Steelers this week, they get the Patriots next week. You have the Packers against the New York Giants next week, and the Packers are clearly on the uptick. And you have the Houston Texans on the road against the Jets and whatever horrible quarterback they decide to start that week. So there's a lot of options to try and get to the big three in week 15, 16, and 17.
And like we said, once you get to 18, you've locked in a ton of money, like no matter what. Like you just, and of course you guys know how to play it, but if for whatever reason, you just bet the opposite side, obviously, of whatever you put in for Survivor, and you make some money no matter what. So you're going to have a ton of ways to make some money that way. But Steven, it's been an awesome season. Like we said, we'll gauge the numbers on this one, see if we'll be back next week or not. But if not, guys, like I said, you are a god amongst mortals if you made it to this part, because it
better than us.
Yeah, it
sure.
is absolutely. It has been chaos and carnage, and 2 different occasions I would have been out already. The one where I already got bumped, and then another one along the way where I would have gotten bumped again. So I would have been out twice already, and you guys are still around. So awesome to you guys. Article over on thelines.com that will continue, and then also, of course, everything we do absolutely free, including the Discord, which if you want to get in and just chop it up talking all things NFL, I mean, it doesn't have to be just picks, sides, and totals and props and things. So you can get in there, upper right-hand corner of thelines.com, and that too is also absolutely free. For Steven, I'm Matt. Good luck on your Week 13 Survivor picks.